If you're celebrating this sort of thing at this time of year, then a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. When I was first thinking about doing YouTube videos, I didn't know what to put behind me. The only thing I had of interest, or that I thought anyone else would find interesting, was my collection of Lego cars, and as luck would have it, they fit on the IKEA Billy bookcase I was using. I've treasured my Lego car collection since I got my first model in 1978, the original Lego car chassis, the one behind me here. And I've bought every large car Lego produced ever since. Well, with one or two exceptions, but we'll get to that later on. I made a series of special videos last Christmas, so I thought it would be good to do something special this year as well. And a video many of you have been asking to see is all about the Lego car models. So here it is, a deep dive into every large model car that Lego have ever produced. As you probably know, Lego's been producing plastic building bricks since the 1950s. By the end of the 60s, they realised these bricks could be used for more than just small cars and houses. They could be used to show engineering principles. There was the educational gear set, large gears that could be joined together with shafts through Lego bricks with holes to accommodate them. They sold a motor so these models could be motorised. These sets showed how gears worked and how circular motion could be turned into lateral motion. More sets would be released in the 1970s, but the gears clearly needed to shrink to work in vehicles that could be made to a realistic size. Models like the Formula One racer from 1975 meant there were additional pieces like large tyres that could be used to make vehicles with steering and engines. In 1977, Lego launched the Expert Builder or Technical Sets line of models, initially consisting of a forklift truck, tractor, helicopter, I've got the helicopter here, and a car chassis, the one behind me. There was a new smaller motor set along with a supplementary set that offered additional Lego Technic pieces if you needed them. Being a kid that liked cars, the car chassis was clearly the model I wanted more than anything, and I got it for my 8th birthday. The model had a 4-cylinder engine that turned and showed how the pistons and crankshaft work, all allied to a 3-speed gearbox. The design of the car was modular. First you build the engine, then you build the steering, then the chassis, and then finally the seats. There was also an optional motor you could install that would allow you to drive the car forwards or backwards. Forwards and backwards because there were 2 gears in the gearbox. One was a reverse gear and one was a forward gear. There was also a neutral. And the whole engine was pretty useful as far as an educational standpoint went because it showed you exactly how the pistons and the gears worked as well as the gearbox, of course. The steering was overly complicated compared to newer models, but then Lego was just finding their feet with building large cars. Newer models have much simpler steering. There's a lot of plates here that allow the car to move, but it also created a steering system which was quite delicate, and this is quite a common thing when you look at this car. It is generally quite a delicate car. You do a lot of repair. I've been doing a lot of repairs while trying to show you this car. You can see there's a plate here that tries to reinforce it, but even with this, the car bows in the middle. Just the whole weight of the car is making it so that the Lego pieces can't really cope with the weight of the car. There was also a rear differential, or rather there wasn't a rear differential. This again would be fixed in future cars where instead of just having a direct connection to the one shaft here, what would happen is you would have a proper rear differential on the next car chassis. And that of course meant that when you go around corners with this car, it doesn't work because it's got a fixed shaft. And you know, there's a good reason why they don't build cars like this. There was also fake suspension here at the front, and also there was some sort of fake suspension here, these little posts here. But this car had no suspension. They were doing enough they could just to build seats and build little seats that moved and have an engine that worked. And for the time, for 1977, this was a very clever model and a significant advance for Lego. So the question is, what car was this based on? Well, of course, in 1977, there were a lot of cars that were 4 cylinders and rear-wheel drive. Maybe not 2 gears, but certainly this car could have been based on many, many different executive cars or that sort of size cars at the time. But I suspect it was the Volvo 200 series, because in the instruction manual there is an option to take this model, and with the supplemental set and this other model that I have here, the Lego helicopter, you could take all the pieces and you can convert it into something that looks suspiciously like a Volvo 200 estate car. So I suspect they were thinking about the Volvo at the time, but then it could have been many, many different types of car. The 1977 car chassis came with another model to build, a two-cylinder go-kart, which was a welcome addition for a model that cost a lot of money for a Lego model at the time. And if you couldn't splurge for the Lego car chassis, Lego offered a rather good go-kart the following year. Maybe because of the structural issues of the car chassis, it took only 3 years until it got a replacement. The most obvious change for this car is it now has 2 seats rather than 4, and that's probably a good thing. I'm sure most kids who were 10 years old buying this model weren't that bothered that it didn't have rear seats. The seats now finally recline properly, so like a real car does, and actually has the same sort of ratcheting system that a real car seat would have. It also goes forwards and backwards just like a regular car seat would. This is not a modular build. The seats are done separately, but then the rest of the car, including the steering and the engine, are all done in one module. The steering uses a lot of Lego plates, but it is much more simplified compared to the original car chassis. It uses what's called the Ackerman steering setup. As you can see, as you turn the steering, the inner wheel turns a lot more than the outer wheel. And that's indicative of an Ackerman setup, which was common on real cars of the period. The big change, of course, is the car has a rear engine instead of the front engine. It's a 4-cylinder boxer engine, which is a lot more compact than the previous engine. It also has a nice little fan feature, so as you drive it around, the fan goes around with a little elastic band powering it. The car now has 3 gears, although only 2 of them are available at any one time. The reason for this is because if you put it in this gear, you actually finally get good drive as opposed to the wheels slipping. But if you put it in the 3rd gear, and I'll demonstrate that now by taking this piece off here. If we take that off and actually put it into the 3rd gear, then, and actually make sure that the gear goes in, then as you can see, it's a lot harder to turn it. You can do it on this low friction surface, and it probably work okay. It's now stopped working. It would probably work okay on a carpet, but realistically, this obviously wasn't a very practical gear. So this gear is really there if you want to put a motor onto the car, in which case it works perfectly well. The car finally got suspension, although only on the rear wheels. It was beyond Lego at this point to be able to do suspension and steering on the front wheels, although they would crack that in the future. So the rear suspension, it's got this big beefy support structure here to make sure that the suspension doesn't collapse, and it really needs it because obviously there's a lot of power going through here. Although the suspension system that they adopted, I don't think is very indicative of how suspension really works, but it did have suspension. There were a few problems with the suspension if you pick it up and try and use it. These items here, it would be easy for these to come off, and then you end up with these suspension bits flopping around a bit. But generally, the construction of this car was pretty good. It didn't bow, it was much better constructed, the car generally stayed together. It was a much improved design. So again, what car was this based on? Well, it's a rear engine car, it's a boxer engine, it's 1980. Some people have suggested this was probably based on the original Volkswagen Beetle, although it only has 2 seats. Maybe it could be the Karmann gear, which, as this model shows when they put a body on it, makes it look a little bit like a Karmann gear. Like the previous model, Lego included instructions for a second model, in this case a dragster. The 1980 car chassis was a vast improvement over the original. There were easier to follow instructions, more features and better construction, so it's no wonder it stayed on sale for a massive 8 years before being replaced. Lego could concentrate on expanding their models in other areas. During the 1980s, I was asking for computer bits for birthdays and Christmas rather than Lego, but I rediscovered my love for Lego just before this model went out of production and bought it out of my first wages. There were many who loved the 1980 Lego car chassis, such as Matt Denton, who's 3D printed a large version of this, as well as the original Lego tractor, bulldozer and forklift. There's a link above if you want to see the build. By the time of the third large Lego car, now called the Test Car in 1988, this Lego range had been rebranded as Technic. The new car was another advance in design. So the 1988 Lego Test Car most obviously has a body on it for the first time. It's a sleek two-seater sports car. It's not really based on any one car. It's just a cool design that kids would love, and what's not to like about that? So starting from the back, the car this time has a V4 engine, which is very similar to the one on the previous Lego car chassis, again with a fan, this time directly connected to the engine. It has a 3-speed gearbox, and this time all 3 gears could be used, and there's even a position for neutral. So the third gear would work, and then the second gear would also work, even on this relatively slippy surface. And then there's a neutral, and then in first gear, it would still work on this relatively slippy surface. So again, it was quite a practical car that obviously thought about what had happened with the previous cars and made sure that it would be a good practical model for kids to play with. The seats this time are simpler than the previous car. All they can do is just again wind forwards and backwards, and then they've got these little angle joints to change the angle of the seat itself. I'm not sure kids were that bothered about whether seats were really fancy or not, because at the end of the day, it's about the engine, it's about driving the car around, and the seats aren't really a very integral part to that. Next to the blue gear stick is a red lever, and that led to something very cool, which is 1980s pop-up headlights, which are of course the coolest part of any car, and you can just have endless fun popping these up and down. The steering, again, is more simple than the previous car chassis, and that's no bad thing. I mean, it works perfectly okay. It's less pieces, so you can focus on putting the Lego pieces into other things that are more interesting. For example, suspension. This time, this car has 4-wheel suspension, and in fact, it's a really solidly put together car. There are braces here, braces all over the place to make sure that this car stays in one piece. In fact, as I can show you, this car can be dropped from 2 feet in the air, 60 centimeters in the air, and it's still okay. Wish me luck. And we had one small piece drop off, but other than that, everything stayed together. Of all the large Lego cars, this is the one that can withstand the most abuse. When it launched, my parents got it me for a Christmas present, and it started my desire to collect every single large car that Lego produced. Like the previous models, it came with a second build, this time a Jeep with an extreme rear suspension design. In 1991, Lego released the Shock Cycle, but it would take until 1994 for the supercar to be launched, and it was something quite special. This car has all the bells and whistles. It has more features, I think, than any other Lego car that Lego have made. It's still got 4-wheel suspension. It's still got steering, of course. It's still got a body. And it also has a boot that opens with a latch like that, which is quite cool. It has pop-up headlights. They're not as satisfying a mechanism as the old car, but it has pop-up headlights, which is kind of cool. It's got a 4-speed gearbox with neutral in the same layout as a real car gearbox, and it's also a better mechanism, which means it's easier to change gear. With the old cars, you had to sort of mash the gears to get it to work, and with this one, it's very smooth and very easy. All this is allied to a V8 engine using smaller cylinders to make it fit into this car. The seats don't move much. I mean, they can do this sort of a small movement on the back, but that's basically all they do. But as I said before, we don't really care about the seats. We're looking for other features, and this has other features. It's got a rear differential. It's got a front differential and it's got a middle differential because this is a four-wheel drive car and it shows off the principles of how four-wheel drive works. So it's taking cool features like the Audi Quattro system and showing kids how they work. But even that's not all. With this big body, it's quite hard to control the steering wheel now because it's sort of in the way. So they've put a rear steering wheel here, which also controls it as well. But the steering wheel doesn't just control the front wheels, it also controls the rear wheels because this car has four-wheel steering. It was popular on cars in the late 80s and early 90s at the time, like the Honda Prelude. And apparently it makes the car a 4x4x4 according to the back. It's called a supercar, but I don't think it's based on any particular model, it's just a cool looking car. We could try the 2-foot drop test, but this car is not as stable as the other car, so I'm not expecting great things. So here we go. That's actually pretty good. I was very impressed. Only one small bit fell off. So that's not bad. I never did find where that piece came from. Other than the first Lego car chassis that holds a special place in my heart, the 4th generation supercar is probably my favourite of all of the Lego cars due to how clever the Lego engineers got in adding so many features to a car with relatively few pieces. It also came with a second model to build a Formula 1 style car with suspension and that V8 engine. It would take 5 years for the next large Lego car to arrive, the 1999 Super Street Sensation. Try saying that 5 times fast. This is definitely the coolest designed Lego car yet, echoing designs like the Mitsubishi Eclipse from the time. It was also nice that they used flexible rods to hint at the bodywork. It allowed you to still use it to change gear or steer the car, so it was a more practical car to play around with. And it has a new feature. It has a retractable hard top. Unfortunately, normally you would press this little button here and the hard top would pop open, but the gas strut or the shock absorber or whatever this thing down here is seems to have lost its zing, so unfortunately it doesn't do that. But it retracts nicely and looks really nice. It's the first time since the original car chassis that they put the engine at the front of the car. And now, of course, it's a V8 and not a 4-cylinder engine, although it's still rear-wheel drive. It's also got a 5-speed gearbox plus reverse, although it is also the time when Lego decided to bring in these dodgy decals, which of course are now starting to disintegrate. The cool looks came at the cost of fewer features. There's no 4-wheel steering, no 4-wheel drive, no pop-up headlights, even though this model has fewer pieces than the previous model. It does have 4-wheel suspension, and I suppose again we can try the old 2-foot drop test. Let's see how many pieces fall off this one. I really am tempting fate with this. That's really good. The car did really well. No pieces fell off. Although there were less features, Lego took a new approach to how the car could be built. After all, this was all about kids getting as much enjoyment out of building as possible. The first book was all about building the chassis, sort of the same as the first 2 car chassis models. The second book was all about the bodywork, and it offered several different body styles that could be built from the pieces provided. Well, normally when I do these videos, I'm fairly relaxed, but I'm running up and downstairs trying to move these models behind me, so I'm getting out of breath. Anyway, in 2000, Lego released the Silver Champion, this car behind me. It was an obvious Mercedes Formula 1 car that Lego presumably didn't have the license to talk about. I have a few of these Formula 1 cars. In fact, I believe I have all of them, but I won't be talking about them in this video. It'll be far too long. If you want me to make a video about those in the future, then let me know. Lego made other cars like the 2001 4x4 off-roader that might be smaller than the Super Street Sensation, but were still almost double the amount of pieces of the original car chassis. And as someone who wanted to collect every large Lego car, this explosion of cool vehicles made it hard to work out just what to pick. So from now on, if I don't feature a big Lego car that you love, then please forgive me. These were the cars that I decided were the big car models that Lego had on offer. With Lego not producing a new large car for 6 years, I presumed that this car, the 2006 Enzo Ferrari, was their new major Lego car model. It might look cool, but it was missing some key features. This is the first large Lego car to be designed based on a specific car, the 2002 Enzo Ferrari, or Ferrari Enzo if you like. Like the real car, it has a V12 engine and the rear can be lifted up to gaze at it in all its beauty. The front frunk here can also be lifted up, although I'm not actually sure it's meant to be lifted up. I think it actually may just be a design problem and it's not meant to do that. The steering wheel also is purely decorative. You can't steer at all with it, but that's okay because you can't really get into this anyway, and there's this steering control here which works really well. It's a good way of doing it. But compared to the previous Lego cars, it's lacking in so many features. Part of this is because the real car doesn't have four-wheel drive or four-wheel steering. It's only got rear-wheel drive, but this car doesn't have any suspension. It's the first car since the original car chassis not to have any suspension. But it does have one feature that was very cool when it came out. I think it's the first time that any Lego car had this, which is butterfly doors. And they pop out with these little, again, gas strut things here, which allow it to open up. And yeah, great feature. Unfortunately, this model is about 20 plus years old, and actually closing the doors becomes more of a problem. You end up having to pop the gas strut down to actually make it go down. But a very cool feature for the time. Given this car has no suspension, I am not going to drop it from 2 feet. It's not going to end well. So we'll leave it at that. I presume the Enzo was a successful model, as Lego produced another Ferrari tie-in just 2 years later with the Ferrari 599 GTB Fiorano. This is undoubtedly a very cool looking model and has a lot in common with the Enzo Ferrari, not just because it's a Ferrari. It's based on the 2006 599. But again, there's no suspension, there's no gearbox, the steering wheel, again, doesn't do anything. It's the rear control here, which does the steering, which again, makes a lot of sense. It has a cool V12 engine and it has this cool little bonnet that you can open up and see it, which is pretty good. But it doesn't have any butterfly doors, just like the real car. It just has regular doors, which are a little uninteresting. It does have a boot, which can be opened up, which is not saying much, I suppose. And that's the real crux of the problem to me. After models like the 1994 supercar, these Ferrari tie-ins were just disappointing. I wanted to see how engineering elements could be replicated in Lego, and there's very little of that in these models. This is more style over substance, and so that's why both this and the Enzo aren't my favourite models. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed building these models, but I felt Lego could do so much better. Next year they'd offer something of a change. With the rise of SUVs and crossovers, they launched the Off-Roader in 2008. I got this model when it came out thinking it was the next in the large Lego car line, but my heart was never in the model, probably because I'm not much into off-roaders. I never put on the decals, not because they flaked off, but more because they had brash Extreme Off-Roader 2 graphics, which I didn't much like. Although it's been in the background of some videos, I ended up selling it in the summer of 2024, mainly because I've got so much Lego and sometimes I have to pare down so I can actually fit new models in. I used it for the Mercedes X-Class video before I sold it, and of course then I needed to do reshoots, which is why the car mysteriously changes to a Lamborghini halfway through the video. It's a shame I got rid of it because it's got some really very innovative features. It's motorised and the motor controls the front winch, but also the suspension that can be raised and lowered. There are gull-wing doors on gas struts and of course chunky suspension, which I seem to recall had no problems with my 2-foot drop test. I thought Lego might have abandoned saloon and sports cars, but it made a triumphant return in 2011 with a new supercar model with new features pioneered on the off-roader model. I see this car as the spiritual successor to the 1999 Super Street Sensation model, so really the 6th large Lego car. There's no Ferrari branding this time, but it doesn't need it. It's a stunning car on its own. And while it has style, it also has some interesting features. There's a motor at the back that opens the bonnet to show the V8 engine. It opens the left and right scissor doors separately and also extends the rear spoiler. Each function can be selected with the gear stick inside. The downsides for this car, there's no steering through the steering wheel, but the steering at the back, it's quite heavy and it's quite hard to turn, so it's not the best in the world. There also aren't any gears for this car because of course where the gear stick is, it's all these power functions, but it did see a return of four-wheel suspension. There is an alternate model to build a Roadster, and the instructions were available online, which I thought was a nice touch because I'm sure not many people actually use those second instructions, and so they're printing a lot of paper which most people aren't using. I love these motorized models, but the problem with having a motor in a car that for me is mainly a display piece is I don't want to keep batteries inside the battery pack because of course they'll explode and then, you know, I'll have all kinds of problems to deal with. So of course I remove the batteries and so I never use the motorized functions. But it's a lovely car, and even though these decals are starting to peel off and flake away, it's definitely one of my favorite cars in my collection. The 2011 LEGO supercar might be seen as the 6th large LEGO car in the series, but the next model would see a real change of pace, a full tie-in with a car maker, and a model that was a lot bigger. The 2016 LEGO Porsche 911 GT3 RS was more than double the pieces of the previous car, and something to behold. As you can see, LEGO decided to finally produce a model of the Volkswagen Beetle, but they've got all the proportions wrong. Of course, I'm joking. This is the Porsche 911 GT3 RS. And let's stop for a moment to appreciate just what an amazing job LEGO did making this model so authentic. It's got yellow disc brakes, red shocks just like on the real RS model. It's got custom wheel rims. It's got an enormous rear wing over the small boot that can be lifted up. Under the bonnet, there's what LEGO calls a track bag. And the gearbox is back, but it's different from previous models. If I open this door, you'll see LEGO has implemented a flappy paddle setup. And this car is new enough that the rubber bands holding it haven't yet disintegrated. The center stick, instead of actually doing the gears, selects between forward and reverse gears, and the middle position is neutral. The gearbox isn't sequential, it actually goes around in a circular order. And LEGO provides a hack on their website to show you how to make it sequential. How many gears are there? Well, I don't know as I can't see them, and that's a recurring problem as you'll see later with this model. There are meant to be decals all over the car, including the instrument panel, but given the history of them flaking off, I didn't put them on this model because I knew they were going to flake off. There is also exclusive content for this car. There's a laser etched piece on the passenger side that's unique to each model. If you go to LEGO's website, type in this number, then you'll get things like mobile ringtones, wallpapers, certificate of ownership, or I presume that's what you get. I think I did it when I first got this car, but this was 10 years or so ago and I can't remember now. Sadly, the whole website is now discontinued and it doesn't work on the Wayback Machine, so I have no idea exactly what it offers or what it didn't offer for this car. The steering is only provided through this wheel, and it's very heavy steering, so it's a little difficult to actually control it with this steering wheel. It's got a flat six engine, but what's the point of building it? Because you'll never see it, because as soon as you build it, you cover it up. So even if you took the top off, you'll still never see this engine. Now, that's authentic, that's the way that it is on the Porsche, but it takes away from all the fun of this car. And this is where we've seen a shift with large LEGO cars with this model. It's not a kid's toy anymore. I mean, LEGO lists it for boys and girls age 16 and up, but really it's an adult toy. The box and unpacking of it are quite an experience. It's an amazing model and it's an amazing experience. And of course that's reflected in the price. But many models are probably like mine, built once and then put on display. This is nostalgia for LEGO models that we built as kids. Clearly the Porsche model was a success, as just 2 years later LEGO followed it up with the fastest production car, the Bugatti Chiron. As you can see, LEGO's produced another stunning design. It's based on the fastest car at the time, the Bugatti Chiron. Like the real car, it's got four-wheel drive, and it's the first time a LEGO car had this since a 1994 supercar, but it doesn't have the supercar's four-wheel steering because Bugatti didn't put it on the car. It doesn't have a track bag like the Porsche, but it does have this rather natty, I suppose, handbag thing. I'm not quite sure what that is. But anyway, it's got it. If you look inside the driver's door, you can see it's got another flappy paddle gearbox. The Porsche one was really hard to use. You might have seen me struggling with it. But this one's, it's much easier, it's much lighter, and it connects to an amazing 8 gears and the sequential. And they connect through the transmission that goes forwards and backwards to the Bugatti Chiron's party piece, a 16-cylinder engine. And now you can at least see part of it from the back of the car. The steering is only through the steering wheel, and like the Porsche, in fact it's even worse than the Porsche, it's very, very heavy. If you want to change the car's direction, you're going to have to be physically moving the front wheels left and right so you can actually get the car to steer, because that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. The Bugatti's party piece is the extending rear spoiler, and it has this little tool that you put behind the rear wheel so you can turn it around to extend it up and down. Again, it's got the laser etched piece for special content, and again, it doesn't work anymore. It still has decals on it. In this model, I did actually put the decals on the car, but Lego, it wouldn't hurt you to spring for pre-printed parts, given how much we're paying for these models. But overall, this is another great model from Lego with amazing detail, and no, I'm not going to drop it from 2 feet in the air. To help publicise the model, Lego went to extraordinary lengths by making a full-size Chiron out of Lego. 90% of the car was made from Lego pieces. That's over 1 million pieces. Even the engine was made of Lego, 2,304 small Lego motors. With an estimated power of just 5.3 horsepower, it wasn't going to make this 1.5 metric ton beast go quickly, but it did get to 12 miles an hour. At that speed though, I'm not sure the rear spoiler was of much use. I'm curious as to how money flows with these tie-ins. In the 70s and 80s, Lego was actually paying companies like Shell to use their branding on their models. It seems to me it should be the other way round. This is great publicity for any brand, given people's love for Lego. Maybe Marlboro should think of doing a Lego tie-in to improve their brand image. The next large Lego car was a move away from supercars with a return to off-roaders with the new Land Rover Defender. It's a model I built up then showed off for the first time in the Land Rover Defender video that I made, which, can you believe, was way back in December 2019. And here is that very model from the video 6 years ago. Like the Porsche and the Bugatti, there are custom rims on it, and you might see some dust on the tyres, and it's not because I've been off-roading it or anything, it's because there's dust on top of the bookcase where I've been putting it, and it's just getting dust all over the tyres. There are more decals on the car, but this is a model that's only 6 years old, and so far it's looking good. There's no problems with these decals at all. There's a nice little ladder here on the side, so there's some nice little additional items. There's these things here which are little mats you're supposed to put underneath the tyres on the real car to get you out of sticky situations. There's a manual winch on the car, so you can flick this item here and move the winch out here, and then there's a little knob here that you can turn that will bring it all back in. Around the back of the car, there is a rather nice way of opening the rear. You just turn the wheel and it opens the latch. And what do we find when we look in the back of the car? But a rear seat. The first time a large car like this has had a rear seat since the original Lego car chassis in 1977. The steering is again controlled through this steering wheel here, but more importantly through this control here on the top. And this is geared differently to the steering wheel, so you can actually turn it and you can actually move the car effectively around. And yeah, this is a nice touch. You can remove this element as well, but I really don't see why people do, because it's really nice having this so you can actually drive the car around and play with it. If the Bugatti model had four-wheel drive, then of course the Defender model has to have four-wheel drive. Inside, Lego has tried to recreate the dashboard of the updated Land Rover Defender, and it looks pretty good in here. On the left, there's a drive neutral reverse selector like the previous cars, but there's also a high-low gear selector to try and mimic what the actual Land Rover would have. and then there's a sequential 4-speed gearbox selector in the middle of the car. Cleverly, when you select the reverse gear, there's only one gear, just like on the real car. This is what LEGO calls their most sophisticated gearbox to date. I wouldn't know that, as the gears aren't working with this car. I mean, you can drive the car around, but when you move it around, you're supposed to see these elements here pop up and down, and they don't do that because there's no link between the gearbox and the engine drivetrain here. And this is one of the problems that I have with these more complicated models, these new more modern models, is that if you build the model, it's very hard to get every single element right. And if you don't, then you've hidden your problem under so many layers of Lego that it's hard to work out exactly what the problem is, how to fix the problem. So it's easier to rebuild the model to try and work out what the problem is. And that's an all-day job. So in the end, I end up just leaving it not working because it's just too much trouble to actually fix the problem. As you can see, as I've mentioned with the engine here, this isn't a proper piston engine. There's just these things underneath here that make these items here pop up and down. And I can't show this off, but I'll put some B-roll in here so you can at least see roughly what it's meant to do. So I suppose now's the time for the 2-foot drop test. And you would think this car would do very well. I have already done this once because I recorded this whole thing and then I lost all the footage. And I thought it would go quite well, but it didn't. What happened was these two wheels fell off, and right here in this part of the car here, this whole thing just sort of came away, and so this was separated. So it wasn't, you'd think for a car that's supposed to be really rugged, it didn't do that well. But anyway, here goes for a second time. We'll see what happens. Well, second time, it went, I would say second time it went better. These wheels fell off again. Oh dear, what a shame. And what's happened over here? Is this thing? Yes, this thing is now, if you can see right here, this part of the car is actually separated from the rest of the car. So I don't know. It's supposed to be a rugged car. It's not that rugged. The Land Rover Defender, the real one, is a well-respected vehicle, but it's a long way from the original car. It's a pricey luxury car with a starting price more than a Porsche Boxster. It's not the cheap agricultural vehicle from the 1940s, but then I'm not sure Jaguar Land Rover could make a product like this now. Despite this, it's become a cool car for rich mums to ferry their kids around. Likewise, the Lego Defender is a well-respected model, and at first glance, it doesn't seem cheap at £160. Inflation adjusted, that's double the price of the old 1977 Lego car chassis. But then that model only had 608 parts, less than a quarter of the Defender, and the Defender is quite frankly a far better model, and in my opinion, clearly much better value. A year later, and only 2 years after the Bugatti Chiron, in 2020 LEGO launched the Lamborghini Si&aacute, whatever it's called, FKP37. It was perfect for filling in the hours during lockdown. Well, I don't know about you, but I think LEGO have once again excelled themselves in terms of design with this car. The little touches like the white bars for the headlights and the Italian flag motifs on the back make this for just a great design. This time in the front boot, what do we have? Do we have a handbag? No, we have what LEGO call a styling weekend bag. Okay, fair enough. Along with the obligatory little laser etched piece. Functionally, this car is an evolution of the Bugatti Chiron and the Porsche 911. We've still got very heavy steering. You really don't want to use this steering wheel to actually turn it. You'll probably break something if you do. The rear spoiler lifts up, this time using a lever in the passenger footwell. There's some interesting interior details, but good luck trying to see them. The gearbox, if we can see in there, has forward, reverse and neutral, just like the previous cars. It's connected again to a flappy paddle gearbox with 8 sequential speeds.
This one is a little sticky, at least on my car, but that may be down to how I made it. It has a better way to view the gearbox drivetrain. Now they've opened the whole thing up at the bottom, which is kind of cool. You can see exactly how the whole thing works. This time it's possible to pop the engine cover off to see Lego's version of the Lamborghini 6.5 litre V12 engine, although you still only get a peek because the engine's again mostly hidden. Like the Chiron, it's got four-wheel drive, so it's mostly like the previous cars. The big change from the previous models is the inclusion of the scissor doors that are on the Lamborghini Si&aacute. They're cool, but they're not that effective. They have problems lining up when the door comes back down again. But we have pre-printed parts now, so there's no more flaking decals on the car. So that, certainly for the longevity of the car, is going to be a lot better. It comes with a little display board here. Lego are now leaning into the fact that we use these things as display pieces, so we've got a little display board to show off exactly what it is. The car certainly looks cool, but as far as technical details, I think I'd prefer the Land Rover Defender, even if it does fall apart.
Like the Porsche and the Bugatti, the Lamborghini Si&aacute had one of those unique plaques to get exclusive content at lego.com/technic. Unfortunately, even though the Si&aacute is still available as of the end of 2025, along with newer cars that also have this feature, the website hasn't offered special content for years. I'm guessing the scheme probably had a very low take-up rate. The real Lamborghini Si&aacute launched in 2020, and then just 2 years later, Lego worked with longtime collaborators Ferrari to offer the Daytona SP3.
It's amazing that Lego produced a car so close to the real Ferrari Daytona SP3. Because the real car was so secret, Lego weren't actually given access to see it. They had to go on a few images and feedback from people from Ferrari. So they did a really good job creating this car. The car shares a lot with the previous models. It has great looks, it has awful steering, it has the same 8-speed sequential transmission setup with forward, neutral and reverse allied to a V12 engine. You can still see the gearbox underneath the car. It's still got that unique code that can't be used because Lego have removed it from their website. It has a unique plaque here, which you can use to display next to the car. The mirrors on the side of the car are still a pain. If you put the car on its side, then they fall off. And with me putting it in a Billy bookcase, it's just too wide, so I have to remove the mirrors to make it work. But let's not take away from the fact that this is a really nice model. So what's different with this car? Well, it doesn't have four-wheel drive, it only has rear-wheel drive. It doesn't have a movable rear spoiler, but it does have quite a large front boot, or fruit as I like to call it. There's a little thing here where you can hold the bonnet open. And there's some gearing here which shows the steering in operation, so you can see what's going on there, which may be useful for some people, I suppose. The rear lifts up to see the V12 engine, and there are butterfly doors again, and these align much better when they open and close. There's also a Targa roof, so you can see more interior detail, but this creates a structural problem with the car that's actually quite hard to fix. There's very little holding the front and rear parts together, so as the car is so heavy, it means the whole car flexes, making it structurally the worst large Lego car since the original 1977 Lego car chassis. The suspension also wouldn't cut it on a real car. The tyres hit the body when they bottom out, and the front of the car actually hits the road. It bottoms out on the ground. So I would say that it wouldn't make a very practical car in reality, but then a real Ferrari Daytona SP3 isn't a very practical car either.
The latest large car Lego produced is the 2024 McLaren P1, and I do have this car, as you can see in the corner of this video, but right now it's on another continent sitting in a box in pieces, so unfortunately I don't have it to show you. I can tell you it's very similar to the Porsche, Bugatti, Lamborghini and Ferrari in terms of size, features and design. It's got the Ferrari butterfly doors and the Lamborghini pop-up rear wing. In 2019, Lego made a full-size version of the McLaren Senna, like they had with the Bugatti Chiron. And in 2024, they celebrated the McLaren P1's launch with a working version of that car. driven by none other than future Formula One world champion Lando Norris. Given the speed it drove, I'm guessing that unlike the Bugatti where 90% of the car was made from Lego, this is really a McLaren P1 chassis with about 340,000 Lego parts making up the body, but it's still a very cool achievement. One car that I'd wish I'd bought, but I never did, was the Batman Tumbler model from 2014, which it was reworked in 2021. It's not something that fits in with any other cars I've got, but it's still a very cool design. If I'm going to talk about all the cars that I consider to be large Lego cars, I must also include a model that I haven't got, the 2024 Mercedes-Benz G500 Professional line. Looking at the features of the car, it looks like it's more a reskin of the Land Rover Defender, with the same pop-up 6-cylinder engine, gearbox with low and high gearing, and steering control on the roof. It's a car that I haven't bought yet, but who knows, I might get it in the future. And the question is, should I buy it? The Porsche 911 was a cool new design, but the latest supercars have really been reworkings of the same design. The new Mercedes is a reworking of the Land Rover Defender. I'm running out of display space for the cars and the new models aren't offering anything new. But then when you decide to start collecting every one of something, you do feel obligated to collect them all, and if you don't get them when they're out, then you've missed out and you might regret it 10 years later, for example. So what do you think? Should I get the new Mercedes model? Which Lego car was your favourite? And which classic car do you think should have been turned into a Lego model? Thanks for watching to the end. A very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if you celebrate those things. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.